Let's play with some fabric scraps today. Today I have a vague idea of hand sewing some sort of bib type necklace out of woven together fabric scraps. I have absolutely no idea if it's going to turn out how I'm envisioning it, so today I'm just going to have fun playing with fabric scraps and experimenting with different stuff to sew with. Normally when I'm going through my fabric stash, I try to find fabrics that will look good together and have similar textures and weights. But today I don't care about that. I'm using every color, texture, and different fabric that I can find. For this project, I'm looking for fabric scraps that are long and thin and will be able to make straight, narrow strips. This will make them easier to weave together. And this process is a little tedious, but it's worth it to find the right scraps. I think this is probably enough to work with. And I'm setting aside these 3 longer strips so I can maybe braid a necklace chain with. First, I need to iron all these scraps because they have a lot of wrinkles in them. And then I need to cut them into strips. And I'm cutting many different widths of strips here. I just want to make sure they are the same width all the way down each strip. I sorted the strips into short, medium, and long lengths, and weeded out some strips I didn't think would work well for this project. And now that I have all my strips cut out, I can start weaving my fabric scraps together. Starting with the longest strips, I laid them all out flat side by side. This is going to be the width of my woven section. Now I'm taking the medium length scraps. I placed some of the medium length ones along the bottom, and I'm going to weave the rest through the other way. I'm peeling back every other strip and starting in the center. I'm laying a single piece over the center of that and unfolding all the strips. And I'm scrunching everything close together so there's no gaps. Then the second strip goes either above or below. And then every strip that was not peeled back before gets peeled back. Set the second strip down and unfold all the strips. Then repeat with the next strip on the opposite side. And now it should start looking a little bit like a woven textile. After you weave in all the medium length pieces, make sure everything is scrunched up really tight together, and then move on to your small strips. And continue weaving all of your small fabric scraps into it until all your scraps are used up and you don't have any more room to weave. The rest of these strips are a little too short to work with, so I am done weaving my textile. The next step is to add interfacing to stabilize these fabric strips and keep them from falling apart. I am using fusible interfacing for this step. And that worked about how I wanted it to. I'm gonna flip it over and we're just gonna trim up all these edges. We don't need any of these fabric scraps to be loose. Now I have a scrap of brown fabric that I'm going to make a backing with. So I'm placing them right sides together, and I'm making sure all of these little tabs are laying flat and not folded up. A few pins later and I can cut my brown backing fabric out right along the edge. I'm really whittling away at this scrap of brown fabric. And now we're ready for the sewing machine. I sewed all the way around the edge, pivoting at the corners. And I left a hole at the bottom to turn it inside out with. And I'm trimming up some of these edges and corners so it lays flatter. Now I can turn it inside out. And I should probably press this again before I sew that hole shut. So I pressed the edges and corners flat and sewed the bottom hole shut with a ladder stitch. And now that that's done, it's time for the last step. I'm going to make a strap out of these 3 scraps. I'm going to start by making a knot at the end. And then I'm going to braid it all the way to the other side where I'm then going to tie another knot. And we'll give the ends a good snip. And hand sew the strap on. And it's done! This was so much fun to make, and I really got to do the whole experimental sewing, playing around with fabric scraps thing today that I wanted to do. I also really love looking at this because every time I see each little piece of fabric scrap, I remember what was originally made with it and what I made with it and where the fabric came from. Like this blue was from my sister's Halloween costume. This purple was a bed sheet. This red was a dress. This black was a dress. This black was a pair of pants. Like there's just so many different fabrics in here, and I really like looking at it. It's just a really nostalgic piece of scrap fabrics to look at. Also really like the way this braid came out. I just think that's so cool looking. I make a lot of projects with my fabric scraps, and I like to make my own textiles a lot, but I've never made one like this before with woven fabric scraps. And I have to say it was a little bit tricky, but it was really fun and a really different way of sewing, so I would definitely recommend trying something with it. I don't think I'm going to be wearing this as a necklace. It's kind of a little too big for that and not the right shape for me. But I do think it will make a very nice wall hanging. My whole goal today was just to show you how you can have fun sewing without really having a clear idea of what you want to make, and then how you can start making one thing and then over the course of making it, it turns into something completely different. Sometimes if it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to, you can always just change it into something else that you will like better. So go bust out some fabric scraps and just go make something and have fun with it. And remember why you started sewing in the first place. This project is also the epitome of the Sew Your Stash challenge that I'm participating in this year because it uses up so many little bits of fabric scraps. And it also uses up your little bits of interfacing that you can just piece together along like I did. And that also makes this a good zero waste and sustainable sewing project. If you want to learn how to make more fun sewing projects that'll just make you smile when you look at them, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Leave a like on this video if you like this wall hanging I made today, and let me know down in the comments what your favorite way to use fabric scraps is. Thank you so much for watching my video today. I'll see you guys next week. Maybe I can get in here. Oh, I'm not tall enough to do that. I thought maybe I could.
You could like, I would stand on something.